The sun hadn't yet cleared the ridge when I turned down the gravel road toward my orchard. Dew clung to the grass like tiny mirrors, and the familiar scent of damp soil filled the air. I remember thinking it was a perfect morning, still, calm, the kind that promised a productive day. But as I crested the hill that overlooked the south end of my property, I hit the brakes. Hard. Rows of neatly planted peach trees gave way to a chaotic circus of color. White party tents sprouted like mushrooms between the trunks, and shimmering fabric fluttered in the breeze where fruit should have been ripening. A DJ booth blared bass-heavy pop music that seemed to rattle the leaves themselves, and dozens of cars were jammed between trees, their tires digging careless ruts into the soil. I sat there, frozen in the cab of my pickup, my jaw hanging open. This had to be a dream. No, a nightmare. I yanked open the door and jumped down, boots crunching against the gravel. The closer I got, the worse it became. Kids in pastel outfits ran between the trees with confetti poppers. Adults sipped champagne from plastic flutes, and an entire catering staff moved like worker ants, oblivious to the fact they were trespassing. My orchard, my land, had been turned into some kind of twisted wonderland. "Hey, hey," I shouted, pushing past a balloon arch that had been wedged between two trees. No one looked twice. A guy in a headset and black t-shirt nearly bumped into me, carrying a tiered cake shaped like a giant peach. "Careful," he snapped without missing a step. I finally spotted her. Karen. She stood in the center of it all like a queen surveying her kingdom. Long blonde hair perfectly curled, oversized sunglasses perched atop her nose, and a silk shawl draped over her shoulders like she was attending a royal wedding instead of committing grand-scale trespass. She laughed at something a man beside her said, then caught sight of me storming toward her. "Ah," she said, in that syrupy tone that made your teeth itch. "The farmer arrives." "This is private property," I said, barely keeping the growl out of my voice. "What the hell is going on here?" She gave me a slow, patronizing smile. "Relax. We're just having a little birthday celebration. My daughter's sweet 16. Don't be such a sour peach." "This is my orchard," I snapped. "You didn't ask. You didn't pay. You had no right." Karen waved a manicured hand like she was brushing away a fly. "Oh, please. I booked it through an event planner. Don't blame me if your communication sucks." I stared at her, dumbfounded. No one booked anything. I never rent out the orchard, especially not during this time of year. She looked genuinely confused for a moment. "What's so special about today?" I didn't even blink. "Crop dusting," her smile faltered, just for a moment. Then she burst out laughing. "Is that some farmer code for you're mad I didn't ask permission?" I stepped closer. "It's scheduled for tomorrow morning. The entire orchard is getting sprayed. It's dangerous to be here. You're risking people's safety." "Then reschedule it." Her voice sharpened like a knife beneath silk. "We're not going anywhere. Rescheduling costs thousands, not to mention the damage you're already doing by driving through the soil." "Then bill the planner," she said with a shrug, turning her back to me. "You'll figure it out. That's what you people do, right? Adapt." "You people," I repeated slowly. She didn't answer, just kept walking, heels crunching the fragile spring grass underfoot. I turned and saw a cop car parked lazily near the orchard gate. I approached, fury boiling over in my chest, and flagged the officer down. The deputy rolled down the window, sunglasses hiding any trace of sympathy. "Morning, got a problem?" "Yeah, a big one. There's a trespassing party in my orchard." He looked past me, unimpressed. "They say they booked it, got receipts and everything." "They didn't book it with me. That land is private, and I never gave anyone permission." He sighed like I was asking for too much. "Might be a civil matter, sir. You'll need to take it up in court." My fingers clenched around the edge of the door. "There's crop dusting scheduled, pesticide spraying. It could hurt people. Then I'd advise you to notify the organizers." "I am the organizer." He didn't respond, just rolled the window back up and tapped something on his phone. When I turned back, Karen was posing for pictures beneath a fake arch that read, "Peach Perfect Sweet 16." The sun had climbed higher, casting sharp gold light over a scene that looked like a Pinterest board gone rogue. Someone handed her a mimosa, and she clinked glasses with another parent. They laughed like they owned the place. I walked back toward my truck in silence, my boots sinking slightly in the soft ground now trampled by SUVs and stiletto heels. The weight of it settled into my chest like wet cement. This orchard had been in my family for 3 generations. I had pruned these trees by hand, memorized every crooked trunk, every stubborn branch, and now it was being used like a rented photo booth. She didn't ask, didn't think, didn't care. But the crop dusting couldn't be stopped. The plane was coming, and whether she believed me or not didn't change a damn thing. As I stood there listening to the distant laughter echoing through the trees, I felt something click into place inside me. Not just anger, but purpose. If she wanted a party in my orchard, I'd make sure it was one she and everyone else would never forget. The house was quiet when I got home, but the silence didn't soothe me. It scraped at my nerves. I dropped into the chair on the porch, boots still dusted with crushed petals and tire tracks, and stared out at the horizon. From here, I could barely see the tops of the tents through the trees, but the thumping bass still throbbed faintly in the air like a headache refusing to fade. I sipped my coffee, now cold. The bitterness matched the churn in my stomach. That orchard wasn't just property, it was memory. Years of back-breaking work, of long summers and cold mornings, of my father's calloused hands guiding mine as we pruned branches and tilled. Rose. He used to say the trees could feel when you were angry. I wondered what they felt today. My phone buzzed beside me, a message from a local beekeeper I worked with. "Hey, saw the party at your place. You doing orchard rentals now?" I didn't answer. A minute later, another message from a vendor I'd partnered with during harvest season. "Thought you said your place wasn't open to the public? Looks like a whole damn wedding out there." The frustration twisted deeper. Karen wasn't just trespassing. She was spreading lies. Her guests were tagging the location as if she owned it. One post even had a geotag that read Karen's Country Estate. Another showed her smiling beneath a banner that said, "Our Orchard Queen." I scrolled through photos of teenagers in designer outfits posing against the very trees I'd fertilized last week, their heels digging into root beds like it was just more disposable scenery. One video showed a food truck pulling through the center row, its exhaust coughing gray clouds into the branches. Beneath it, someone commented, "Such a rustic vibe. So authentic." I clenched my jaw until my teeth hurt. There was nothing authentic about any of this. My phone rang. It was the crop duster. "Still good for tomorrow, 5:30? The pilot asked. "Yeah," I said, eyes still fixed on a picture of Karen holding a peach like a glass of wine. "No changes? Cool. Forecast clear. We'll make 3 passes. Gonna get loud." "Understood." I hung up and leaned back, exhaling slowly. That was the problem. This wasn't just about noise or property damage. The chemicals used, spraying, were regulated, calibrated, and approved. They weren't designed for humans to be walking through. That's why I warned her. But she laughed it off like I was making it up. She had no clue what kind of liability she was toying with. I tried once more, just in case she had a shred of reason left in her. I walked back toward the orchard at dusk. Most of the guests were gone, but the staff was still there, stringing up lanterns, refilling coolers, blasting rehearsals through the sound system. Karen sat beneath one of the larger tents in a plush armchair, like it was her living room. Her daughter, predictably bored, scrolled through her phone beside her. I approached slowly. She didn't look up. "I'm telling you again," I said, voice low but firm. "That plane's coming. I can't cancel it. It's scheduled, it's legal, and it's been booked for weeks." Karen finally met my gaze over her sunglasses. "And I'm telling you again, not my problem." "Do you hear yourself?" I asked. "You're exposing people to chemicals. This isn't a warning out of spite. It's basic safety." She waved a hand. "Then put up signs, or call the pilot and tell him to wait an hour. You've been making a big fuss over a simple party. It's not simple, and you're not listening." Karen smirked. "No, I'm just not interested in drama. This is already stressful enough. Half my vendors are threatening to walk if you keep lurking around like some angry scarecrow. You're scaring people. I'm warning them. Well, consider your warning delivered. She stood, adjusted her shawl, and leaned in with a mock whisper. We'll be gone by noon. Surely your little bug plane can wait. I stared at her. You're gambling with people's safety for a party. I'm gambling on the fact that you don't have the guts to ruin a sweet 16 with lawsuits. Hanging over your head, the air between us thickened, the silence broken only by a sudden laugh from one of her guests and the faint buzz of a generator kicking on. I walked away. She thought I was bluffing. As I made it back to my porch, twilight. Sinking over the hills, I opened the folder on my desk. Inside were the spraying permits, the email confirmations, the calendar marked in red. Everything was official, documented, bulletproof, and Karen hadn't even asked. That was the moment I stopped feeling angry and started feeling focused. This, wasn't about winning a shouting match. It wasn't about a petty revenge fantasy. This was about letting nature and time do what they were already scheduled to do. She wanted a party in the orchard. She was going to get one, just not the kind she was expecting. Morning came with a chill that clung to my skin, the kind of cold that doesn't belong in late spring, but sometimes shows up anyway. Sharp, uninvited, stubborn. I stood at the edge of the orchard just before dawn, fingers wrapped around a thermos, eyes fixed on the open sky. The party tents were still up, ghostly silhouettes in the mist, swaying slightly as if unsure whether they belonged there at all. The pilot's voice crackled through my phone, clear and calm. I'm 10 out. Wheels up in 2. Confirm you're still go. Confirmed, I said, eyes narrowing on a movement between the trees. The first car headlights sliced through the early fog, then another, and another. Despite everything, they were coming back. Karen hadn't left. In fact, she doubled down. SUVs rolled over flattened rows. Kids climbed out in matching outfits, and the catering crew returned like ants to a sugar. Bill, a mariachi band, began tuning up. One of the tents now had a mini stage. They were gearing up for a morning celebration, likely to snag golden hour photos. I watched from the top of the rise, still and silent. I'd warned them. Multiple times told them plainly what was going to happen. No games. No exaggeration. But they'd chosen not to listen. Karen emerged wearing a peach-colored suit with gold trim, clearly custom-tailored. Her daughter followed in a feathered dress that looked like it cost more than my truck. A photographer trailed. Behind them, like paparazzi, snapping candid crown-the-birthday girl moments under the trees. Then she spotted me. Karen raised her sunglasses and gave a theatrical sigh. You again? What, no lawyer yet? Pilots inbound, I said, nodding toward the sky. She didn't even glance upward. If you're trying to intimidate me, it's not working. We're here. We're not leaving. I'm not trying, I said. I'm just not stopping the thing that was already scheduled. Her daughter frowned. What is he talking about, Mom? Karen waved her off. Nothing important. Just the grumpy land guy being dramatic again. That's when the sound hit. A distant drone, like an approaching storm. Low and steady, growing louder with every second. People began to look up. One of the caterers froze, shading his eyes. The crop duster burst over the ridge in a wide arc, sunlight gleaming off its yellow wings. The roar of the engine vibrated the ground. It was majestic in a way that made your spine hum. It didn't dip low, yet, but its presence was impossible to ignore. Karen's smile wavered. You called that thing? You're bluffing. This is insane. No bluff. I told you yesterday, told the cop, told your staff, nobody cared. You're really going to spray pesticides on people? In public? That's illegal. I cut in. No, you're trespassing. I have documentation. You've ignored 3 written warnings, 4 verbal ones. I even emailed your event planner. You never responded. You'll be sued into dirt, she snapped. I'll be sued standing on my own land, with a permit, doing what's legally allowed. Her voice cracked just enough for me to hear the fear start to seep in. There are children here, and they shouldn't be. The plane made another pass, closer now. You could see the hopper under the belly. Nozzles lined the wings like teeth. A few guests began backing toward their cars, murmurs of concern rippling like wind through dry grass. A security guy motioned to the DJ, who slowly turned the music down. The band stopped playing altogether. Karen spun around. "Nobody panic, he won't do it." I made a single gesture. A slow thumbs up to the pilot, barely visible from below but unmistakable in intent. The plane dipped low, wings leveled, nozzles clicked. A fine mist began trailing behind the craft like a ghost's breath, harmless at high altitudes but meant to saturate acres of ground. It passed over the far edge of the orchard first, well away from the tents. A warning shot. Screams. Broke out anyway. Mothers grabbed kids, guests ducked under tables. Someone dropped a tray of champagne that exploded across the grass like glassy fireworks. Karen's expression twisted. Part rage, part disbelief, all panic. "Everyone to the cars," someone shouted. The DJ killed the music. The photographer bolted. Two of the tents collapsed as people tried to pull them down mid-panic. A catering van backed into a tree trying to turn around. The sound of crunching metal and the shriek of a car alarm filled the air. Karen stood frozen, one hand gripping. The archway she'd decorated with silk and fake blossoms. Her hair blew sideways in the rotor wash as the plane made its second pass, this time a little closer, the mist cutting through the morning light like silver rain. "You lunatic," she screamed at me, her voice cracking over the roar. "You'll regret this." But even she was backing away now, heels slipping in the churned-up mud. The crowd scattered. Vehicles fishtailed across grass and gravel, tearing up roots and kicking up dust in their scramble to flee. Abandoned decorations fluttered like ghosts caught in a storm. The band left their instruments behind. Within minutes, the orchard was empty again, just rows of trees, a collapsing stage, a forgotten birthday tiara buried in the dirt. The plane made one final sweep, then banked west and vanished over the horizon. I walked down into the orchard, past the overturned coolers and broken glass. The smell of the spray clung to the air, sharp, medicinal, unmistakable. But safe now. The trespassers were gone. The land was quiet again. I picked up a stray balloon, now deflated, and tied it to a branch. Just a little memento. I didn't need to say anything. Karen said it all with her silence. The silence that followed the chaos hung in the air like smoke. The early morning sun climbed higher, casting long shadows over the deserted orchard. My boots crunched softly against the wet earth as I walked between the rows of trees, inspecting the damage. The scent of the spray still lingered, sharp and chemical, but the orchard felt peaceful again. No shouting, no music, no overpriced decorations scattered among the grass. Just the quiet hum of life returning to its natural rhythm. I took a deep breath, watching the last few cars peel away, their tires spinning in the muddy tracks they'd left behind. It was over. But that didn't mean the satisfaction settled. And right away, as I stood there, the adrenaline ebbed, leaving only a dull burn beneath my ribs. The kind of exhaustion you get after a battle, when you realize what you've just survived, but not quite how to feel about it. The sound of footsteps crunched behind me, slow and deliberate. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Karen, she was alone this time, her heels sinking in the soft earth as she approached. Her hair was a mess, wind-blown and frazzled, the expensive fabric of her peach-colored suit now rumpled and stained. She had a look of someone who'd just seen their entire world crash down in front of them. The sun caught the gold trim on her jacket, making it look gaudy and out of place in the quiet aftermath. "You did it," she said, her voice thick with disbelief and something else. Anger, maybe. Fear? Both, probably. She stood a few feet away, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. Her eyes flickered from me to the wreckage around us. "You really did it." I didn't answer at first. Instead, I just stood there watching her, letting the weight of the moment settle between us. There was nothing left to say about the spray, the plane, the chaos. The consequences had played out and her guests were gone. Now there was only her. She took a shaky breath and stepped closer, her voice softening but the edge still there. "You think this makes you a hero? Humiliating me in front of everyone?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time I saw the cracks in her polished exterior. The woman who'd strutted through my orchard like she owned. The place was no longer the arrogant queen of a birthday party. She was just a person who'd lost, who'd underestimated the consequences of pushing too far. "I didn't humiliate you," I said. "You did that yourself. I warned you. Over and over. And you kept pushing. What was I supposed to do? Let you wreck everything?" Her eyes flashed with indignation. "You could have let me have my party. People come to places like this for the experience. You're just so small-minded. You could have made so much money, you know. We could have shared it. I could have helped you." "Helped me?" I scoffed, my voice sharp. "By ruining everything I've worked for? You didn't give a damn about what I wanted, Karen. You thought you could just buy your way in, take what you wanted, and walk away with no consequences. Well, this wasn't a transaction. This is my home." She didn't respond at first, her face softening into something more vulnerable. Maybe it was the adrenaline fading, or maybe, finally, the realization that everything she'd built was a house of cards. "You've really made your point, haven't you?" she said, the words barely above a whisper. "You could have been kind. You could have handled this better." I shook my head, a bitter laugh escaping. "Kind? I was kind when I warned. You and I gave you every chance to leave. You wanted to be treated like royalty, but you didn't respect what you were stepping on. What's worse, you didn't even care about the people you brought here." Karen flinched at the last part, a flicker of guilt crossing her features before she quickly masked it. "I didn't know," she said, her voice wavering. "I didn't know the plane was going to come. I didn't—" "No, you didn't know," I interrupted, stepping closer now. "Because you didn't care enough to find out. You never bothered to ask about anything except what you wanted. That's the difference between us." For a long moment she didn't speak. Then she exhaled sharply, as if all the fight had left her. "I'll get you for this," she said, the words barely a threat, more like a final plea. "I'll make sure your name is dragged through the mud. You think this is over? It's just starting." I met her gaze without flinching. "You can try. But everyone saw what happened today. Everyone saw you take over my land without permission. You made it public, and I'm not afraid of your threats, not anymore." Karen's face twisted into something between a sneer and a grimace, but it was hollow now, stripped of its earlier venom. She turned abruptly, her heels clicking sharply against the ground as she started to walk away. The sound of her footsteps faded into the distance, but the finality of the moment lingered in the air. I stood there for a while, watching her go, watching the remnants of her party being slowly dismantled by the wind and the workers who had no idea what they were cleaning up. There was a strange satisfaction in it, the way the land was slowly reclaiming itself, like it had never been touched. I took one last look at the orchard, the trees swaying gently in the breeze, the sky above clear and unmarked, and walked back toward my truck. The world felt different now. Calmer. The tension had snapped like a string pulled too tight. But as I climbed into the driver's seat and started the engine, my phone buzzed. A notification. It was a video, posted less than an hour ago. I clicked it without thinking. It was a clip from someone's Instagram story. A shaky, grainy video of the crop duster, the chaos, the panic. And then, as the camera panned, a voice. "Karen's country estate, folks. The orchard queen takes a fall." I paused, watching the laughter and comments flooding in beneath it. People were tagging Karen's account, sharing memes. A small victory, I thought. A bit of justice. The road ahead was empty, and for the first time in days, I felt like I could finally breathe.